So the Italians have often been a superior force when it comes to international football, but they seem to be lacking a little bit in this moment. And we're going to talk about it here on Let's Talk Tactics for their game coming up against Croatia. It's the pick of the bunch, I would have to say, these games. There's a lot of dull encounters in there. No offence to any of the nations involved. But this is our pick, and we're going to see how the Italians can dismantle the Croats. So with Italy, the first point you have to look at, we're just going to throw straight to it, is their... All right, sorry, can I just throw straight to their other graphic? So that's all right. All right, we'll go from here. This one? Yeah. So the first thing about the Italians is the lack of goals. Let's just look at this straight away. And for you fans out there, yes, that is Chiellini, who was on the receiving end of one of Suarez's appetizers. So he has 2 goals for Italy, and yes, he is a centre back. And De Rossi's next with 1 goal, and yes, he is a defensive midfielder. Pelé. Not the original, believe me, but 1 goal from him and 1 goal from Bonucci. And you look at their games. There is a significant thing you have to say about Italy. They don't score a lot of goals, yes. 1-0 against Malta, 2-1 against Azerbaijan, which was a struggling game, 2 goals against Norway, and then they win against Netherlands. I mean, they're winning their games, there's no doubt about that. But why is their centre-back their highest scoring player, basically? And that's because they've had this struggle of using their strikers to their own use, and it's because they would rely on the likes of Balotelli, who played in that Italian formation as a lone striker to hold up the ball, which just completely did not work in the World Cup. They still had an unbelievable amount of possession. If you look at their games in the World Cup, they had superior possession, they had superior passing accuracy, they had everything that you expect from the Italians, but the finishing quality. So the big thing that they've changed in their new formation is that they're going with their usual 3-5-2, Bonucci, Chiellini, and I think that's Damian at the back there. They're good players. They have that Juventus sort of back line, aside from Damian. Bonucci and Chiellini are getting a little bit on. I don't think they can keep up with the pace once it goes into the competition in the latter stages. We'll soon see about that. But let's not forget that there's guys like Pirlo who are getting that age, but they still pull the strings around there. The thing about Italy, I think, is using that man Immobile. And Immobile is, like, you may be confused by his name. He is the most mobile striker, one of the most mobile strikers in Europe. And for Dortmund, the guy is on fire. And that's because he's got a striker who can play up top with him and use him to his ability. And what he does up there with Aubameyang is he uses Aubameyang as his anchor to pick up the ball and move off of him. And that's what he's looking for, I think, more in Italy. Balotelli has obviously found his way out of favour in the Italian national team, as way as he does. His performances from Liverpool obviously echo that. But Pelé up there isn't exactly that typical Italian striker that you've seen in Inzaghi getting in the box. So they've always looked for that partnership up there. They've really had one if they want to play 2 up top. But what they do have is the strength of midfield. You have so many well-rounded players who can keep the ball, and you've got the likes of De Rossi, Pirlo, Marchisio, who can all play in this role. And you might think the midfield gets crowded. But what they do is it soon turns from a 3-5-2, it turns into what looks like a 3-1-2-4 almost, because they push their wide players so far up that it turns into this formation. And this is where they are at their best, and that is when Italy, and when you remember back in the Euros 2010, that's where they would hit teams, is they would get into the final third and they'd keep possession, and they'd manage to use the likes of Pirlo, who could find his way out of a paper bag, as I always say. His passing ability is unbelievable. But I like the fact that they use their wide men, and they use a lot of these youthful players who come into the Italian team. I really like Verratti, because he plays for PSG, and he plays in a similar formation with a crowded midfield in the likes of Matuidi, but he himself has the ability to find a pass and no worry. And when you use this 5 midfield, it allows him to free up, because you can let De Rossi just sit and do what he does. It's almost like a centre-back in the middle of midfield. He will rarely move around this area, and he'll keep himself that stabilised force to allow for the likes of Verratti to go forward, which they didn't do enough in the World Cup. I thought they could utilise him more, his useful flair. With Montolivo missing in the World Cup, they needed someone like that, but Verratti wasn't allowed the freedom, I don't think, that he should have been done. So for this game, I don't imagine that it will be hard for Italy to break down Croatia, but then they're going to be susceptible to counter-attacks, because when you have 3 at the back, what you do when you push these men forward is that they'll get stretched. Chiellini has this tendency to move out and press the ball quite a lot. He loves to dive in and make tackles. If you look at the guy's challenges in the World Cup, he was always diving in. One point he was playing left back, and I remember him just always either on his ass, basically making challenges, but he's a smart defender. He'll go in and try and win the ball, and if he doesn't, he'll take the player out so that they're not getting by him anyway. But when they get stretched like that, this is where they can concede goals, as we see seen against England, when the ball got down the line and cut across, that was when they were dangerous in that box. So Italy, for me, they are on a winning streak, and I don't think that it'll be too hard for them against Croatia. So unlike some of the Italian games, when they lack the fan base, I think when Italy come behind, the fans pull behind them, and in that noisy Stadio Olimpico, I don't think that Croatia will be able to match up to the structured Italy. I don't imagine it'll be more than a 1-0, 2-1 game. You can try and put your money on that and come back and blame me if you don't get it right, or congratulate me and give me a little tip of what you've made. Make sure to leave your comments in the section below and subscribe to TYT Sports.